Ready? Okay. Well, good afternoon. 3 weeks ago today, I was in Ottawa awaiting the start of a First Minister's meeting that would end up being cancelled. It would seem like the blink of an eye, the world had been turned upside down. The health crisis, a worldwide pandemic, COVID-19, exploded. It has since changed the way we interact and changed the way we live. That health crisis has also unleashed a worldwide economic crisis that too is changing our daily lives and will continue to for many months to come or longer. For the past 3 weeks, we've been fighting on two fronts. Dr. Heather Morrison and hundreds of island health professionals are working around the clock, trying to keep islanders safe and healthy, working to contain and mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in our province. Their efforts so far to date have been strong, they have been coordinated, but there are many tough days ahead. Economically, we have been working with our federal partners, with island businesses, with individuals, with NGOs, and so many more to try to address the economic heartache that has left thousands of islanders without a job, has closed businesses, and has a growing uncertainty of what lies ahead. Today, I wanted to take a moment to talk directly to the business owners, the entrepreneurs, to the brave souls who make up our business community in Prince Edward Island from east to west. To begin, I feel deeply for those business owners whose lives, professionally and personally, have been turned upside down. Through the COVID-19 crisis, we know that nobody has been unaffected. As a government, we have worked and continue to work to address as many issues as we can, as many issues as we know, while trying very hard to adjust on the fly when new issues arise. This is frustrating for all islanders. This is frustrating for businesses, for owners, and for workers. This is frustrating for me. As hard as we try, as much as we wanted to hope otherwise, we knew from the very beginning that we couldn't make everyone whole as we work to address the economic challenges tied to COVID-19. From the beginning, we have tried as hard as we can to lessen the pain. We have stepped up immediately with programs, with funding, to put money in the pockets of islanders as fast as possible. Our federal partners have stepped up to the plate in a big way. And as their programs begin to roll out, we have been looking at the gaps we needed to fill, what money we needed to transition quickly until the federal programs kick in. I feel we've been doing a very good job under incredibly difficult and changing circumstances. But I also know that it isn't perfect. There are gaps and holes in our program delivery, and we are working hard every day to identify the gaps and to plug the holes as fast as we can. The private sector in Prince Edward Island has been the backbone of our economic engine for years. Agriculture, fisheries, tourism, aerospace, bioscience, retail, real estate, construction, personal services, and so many more, among all of the others that provide employment and job security for islanders. The situation you find yourselves in today, that we find ourselves in, is not fair. We are trying to help you get through it. I have to say that in the last 3 weeks, I am amazed to see how many of you have come forward with ideas and solutions. The innovation and adaptation of businesses has been truly inspiring. The response hasn't been about ignoring the guidance of Dr. Morrison. Rather, it has been about how to live and operate and adapt around it. We have watched businesses support each other with promotions of buy local, with gift cards, with support for their workers, and it has been truly inspiring. To see the seasoned volunteer group come quickly together, Island Small Business Mentors, led by Bill Thompson of Summerside and Stephen Murphy of Charlottetown, has been invaluable. The calls that I have received from people simply wanting to help have given me great confidence and gives me a hope and a knowledge that we will come through this. We will get to the other side of this, and we will do so soon. It will not be easy, but we will get through it. We have worked as a government to assist your employers, your employees, and we have established an emergency capital loan program. We announced a rent deferral program. We wanted to work with landlords and those business owners who lease space to defer payments at a minimum for 3 months. We felt this was the fastest and most efficient way to take one big worry away for now. We know it isn't a perfect solution. As more and more federal programs are developed, as well as the provincial programs that we will continue to work on, as we look ahead with an eye to recovery, we know that we will continue to work with businesses, to assist businesses and individuals, because we know this is a long haul. We will continually look to evolve our program offerings in the days and weeks ahead. We want life to return to some kind of normal, even if we don't know what that normal looks like. But to me, a big part of that normal will be knowing that small and medium-sized businesses in Prince Edward Island are ready and poised to kickstart our economy. The other really challenging aspects of this, and there are many, are the speed at which we need to ramp up to address islanders' needs, and the fact that each island business has unique needs. That makes it really, really tough, impossible even, to develop a program that answers for everything. In spite of this, we continue to try. We are constantly looking to ensure that nobody is missed. That will continue. We know that we can't make anyone whole, but we are doing our best to ease the pain, to lessen the burden. Minister McKay announced funding this week to assist businesses adapt through e-commerce, revised marketing, budget planning, HR support. As one leader said to me, all businesses need a plan, and that is never more important than now. From day one and every day since, our emergency economic response has been to do the best we can for as many as we can, for as long as we can. We will continue in that pursuit. I also want to discuss another issue we are dealing with that is of great concern to many islanders. It's our recent announcement of a rent assistance subsidy for those workers who have been laid off or have seen their hours reduced due to COVID-19. Minister Hudson yesterday unveiled the package. We rolled out this package that will see those impacted receive $500 in April, $250 each in May and June. Our program is designed this way because in April we know the federal assistance programs may roll out slower than what is needed. That is the same reason why we have offered a one-time $750 payment for those same individuals to help them get through until the federal programs are up and running. Those individuals captured under this program will see money flowing from a variety of programs announced federally very soon. Their income won't be at 100% of the level it was prior, and that is why we are stepping up with some rental assistance. Our program can also be accessed by those students who need rental assistance as well. But we realize we need to do more for our students. We are working on the details of a financial assistance package for students, and that will be released early next week. It will be targeted at those who were planning to go to a job that isn't there now, those who were working part-time but now aren't, and we are also looking at offering further financial assistance for those enrolling in post-secondary studies. But it is important for me to note two things. Firstly, those islanders who were receiving rental assistance previously have continued and will continue to receive that funding. If you're in a situation where your rental agreement is income-based and you have seen a decrease in your income, you can contact Social Development and Housing and they will amend your financial arrangement accordingly. And secondly, this does not mean that you don't have to pay your rent. I know islanders are good living and honest people who want to pay their bills. While we have taken extraordinary steps to provide safety and security for those who rent or lease, there remains an expectation for those islanders to continue to pay their rent or work hard in the process until such time as they can. Every single landlord in this province has demonstrated a commitment to work with individuals who may need to alter arrangements or delay payments until financial programs kick in. Our government is committed to assisting as well. There are many programs and opportunities to assist those islanders who need it. But like every other aspect of this economic crisis, our best way to address the challenges we face is by working together. As discussed earlier with respect to our response to the business community, government realizes that we can't make everyone whole, but we are trying to do everything we can to lessen the impact and to ease the pain. COVID-19 is impacting every single individual in this province. We have had almost 10,000 people file for EI in the past 2 weeks. That number will continue to grow. We are committed to doing everything we can to work with you to get through this, and we will get through this. And in closing, I would again reiterate and accept the facts as they are. Our programs are rolling out fast. We are working hard to ensure that no islander is missed, but they aren't perfect. We will continue to work hard to make these existing programs better, as well as to improve those that we will announce in the future. We will make them as good as we can make them, and we will not be afraid to change them and alter them as needed. When we find that programs aren't meeting needs, we will tweak them. When we find programs are missing a certain group or demographic, we will alter and amend them as needed. As your Premier, I know that you're worried, and we all are. We are trying to do everything possible to alleviate as much of that worry as possible. That means following the expert advice of Dr. Morrison to do everything we can to stay safe and healthy. And that means to continue to implement programs of assistance that will help you, the islander, weather this difficult time financially. From the bottom of my heart, I am grateful for your patience. I am appreciative of your understanding, and I am forever grateful for your support. And with that, I wanted to introduce someone who needs no introduction, our Minister of Finance, Darlene Compton. I've asked Minister Compton about a week ago, or maybe a little bit more, to prepare an economic outlook of where we are as a province today as we flip the calendar from April 1st into a new fiscal year. So Minister Compton will provide an economic assessment of where we're at, as well as an eye of where we could be going. So over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. Only a few weeks ago, we were preparing for a spring session of the Legislative Assembly. We were preparing to table a full operating budget that included input from both the official opposition and the third party. The collaborative 2020-2021 provincial operating budget was projecting a modest surplus. So much has happened since then. Life as we know it has been turned upside down. The world we now live in is unimaginably different, and nothing like any of us could have predicted. As the Premier has said many times, these are unprecedented times. As government, our focus has quickly shifted so that we can immediately respond to the impacts COVID-19 is having on our province. One thing that hasn't changed, though, is our commitment to islanders. Islanders continue to be at the heart of every decision that we make as government, to ensure that we are keeping you safe and that we are putting supports in place to help individuals, businesses, communities, and our province get through these challenging times. With that in mind, I will be sharing a fiscal and economic update with Islanders this afternoon, as it is important for you to know where we stand as a province during this pandemic, recognizing that this is typically an update I would be providing during the spring legislative session. At the end of 2019, PEI's economy was outperforming the national average, leading the country in estimated GDP growth. And we were projecting this positive momentum carrying into 2020. Our employment growth for 2019 was 2.6%, the second fastest among the provinces, with more islanders employed full-time last year than ever before. The rate of our population's growth was strong, outpacing all other provinces. Our net debt to GDP ratio had improved to levels unseen since prior to the economic crisis of 2008. And until very recently, we projected tabling a slight budgetary surplus, as I previously mentioned. I share all of this with you so that you know the position our economy was in before this pandemic breached our red shores. If there is one message you take away today, it is this. Because of our strong fiscal standing pre-COVID-19, and more importantly, because of the resiliency of Islanders, we are going to be in a better position to bounce back together when this pandemic is behind us. We recognize that Islanders have been directly impacted by this situation. Some have been laid off, some have had their hours reduced, seasonal workers are uncertain whether there may be work for them, and business owners are worried about the future of what they built over the years and for the staff who they consider family. There are understandably frightening days for many of our communities. These are frightening days, but I want to assure you that for as long as this situation lasts, your government will be here for you. Prince Edward Island is one of the first provinces to declare a public health state of emergency. This was to ensure that our Chief Public Health Officer had the authority to direct resources where they were needed and where they are needed in our urgent efforts to contain and mitigate the health impacts of COVID-19 and to ensure continued safety of all Islanders. At the same time, as a government, we are taking immediate action to address the non-health related impacts on Islanders, announcing an initial $25 million emergency contingency fund to support island workers, including the self-employed and small businesses who were affected. And today, we are increasing the value of this fund to $40 million in anticipation of the evolving critical needs of island families, workers, and businesses. I'm also pleased as the Minister of Finance to confirm that we will be providing an option to defer provincial property tax and fee payments until December 31st, 2020. More specifically, past due payments will be given a 7-month extension for payment. First payment for this fiscal year will receive up to a 7-month extension. Second payment for this fiscal year will receive up to a 4-month extension, and the third and final payment will receive up to a 1-month extension. In other words, property owners will have the option of deferring all property taxes owing until December 31st, 2020. For the continuity of local services and garbage collection, the province will continue to pay the municipalities, fire stations, and Island Waste Watch Management Corp. For their tax and fee amounts as normal. Our objective is to work collaboratively with the federal government so that we make sure programs align and fill the gaps to ensure no Islanders are left behind. Both levels of government want to get money into the hands of Islanders as quickly as possible, and to those who need it the most. My cabinet colleagues have been strategic in designing our provincial programs. We know that the federal government needs time to roll out programs for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We can be and have been nimble. We have designed our programs to provide immediate financial relief to Islanders while they wait for the federal programs to kick in. By no means has it been perfect, but I can assure you that our team is working around the clock to ensure that our province's response is as immediate and responsive as possible. This afternoon, we are releasing our 2019-2020 Economic and Fiscal Update, a picture that has changed somewhat during the final weeks of the fiscal year. Earlier today, I shared this update with my opposition colleagues. 3 weeks ago, we were at a $2.5 million surplus. With the significant impact that COVID-19 has had on our province over the past 23 days, we are now forecasting a small deficit of $3.7 million for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. That figure is a result of a $38.4 million decrease in revenues, which is primarily being offset by a projected $32.8 million reduction in operational spending. You can find the details outlined in the documents that are now posted on the provincial website. However, I would like to highlight a few points. We are projecting a decrease in overall tax revenue of $5.2 million. This includes personal, sales, and corporate. A delay with infrastructure projects has meant a delay in federal infrastructure transfer revenues, as well as an equal delay in provincial infrastructure spending. With improvements made to the provincial nominee program, we have had fewer defaults of deposits, resulting in lower revenues. And we realized interest savings of $2 million because of our improved credit ratings and lower than expected interest rates. As Islanders, we are living day to day in this pandemic, but we are looking to the future and thinking and planning for economic recovery. The commitment from the Premier and our government is that we will work together to support Islanders through this period and prepare for how we can, together, recover following COVID-19. I want to remind Islanders that our strong economic position going into COVID-19, a position we were fortunate enough to be in because of the hard work of Islanders, has better positioned our province to weather this unprecedented time and be there for Islanders. And like all of you, I look forward to a day when we can get back to our somewhat normal lives. Until then, rest assured that we will get through this together. Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your great update and your great leadership on this file. I know there's money that needs to be spent, and we're prepared to spend it. But we, as always, through your watchful eye, need to keep an eye on the future and not to be downloading any more burden than that has to be downloaded on the generations to come. So thank you for that. And with that, we will open up to questions from members of our media.
Nicole Williams, CBC.
Yes, hi. I guess I'm just wondering, you're rolling out so many financial programs, especially with the Ontario government projecting that this could last up to a few years. I'm just wondering how sustainable this all is. Is there a time where you're sort of suspecting this money might run out?
That's a very good question, Nicole. I'll answer the first part of it, and Minister Compton can answer a part of it. But I just think we're in a time right now when you look across the globe that I think governments need to step up to the plate, and every government is doing that. We need to do everything we can to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help those islanders. Everybody here is impacted. We have an ability to do things here because of the strong fiscal situation that we're in. And these are investments that we're making. These aren't just costs. These are investments that we need to make now in order to get ready to get to the backside of this whenever it happens. But I think you're exactly right. I think there's a health component of this that I hope we can get through sooner rather than later. But the economic hangover of this isn't something that will be rid of by Canada Day, for example. It will continue on, and Minister Compton knows that better than most. It will linger on for months and years.
Yes, Premier. Nicole, I would just like to state that this will last for a long while, and the comment that I made earlier about the province being able to rebound quicker is definitely true because of where we are fiscally now. All that we can do is heed what Dr. Heather Morrison is telling us to do, to stay home and to distance ourselves so that we can limit the pandemic on PEI so that we can get back to a better fiscal place.
And can I just get you to clarify on how you forecasted the 3.7 million deficit? That seems like quite a modest deficit considering everything that's going on. Can you just clarify and expand on that, please?
Sure. So, and the fiscal year ending on March 31st is what we're talking about. It's the previous fiscal year. So we were projecting a modest surplus, and then with just the month of March, basically, we incurred that extra spending so that there was a deficit.
Nicola McLeod, CBC.
Hi. We're hearing that there were some charges laid today, another case of an individual not self-isolating in the Kensington area. Can you give us some details on that?
I can't give you too many particulars other than what I has been passed on to me and what I've read through some media outlets, but from what I understand, there was an individual who was had identified coming across the Confederation Bridge as someone who needed to self-isolate and was found to be out in the community, and a charge was laid. I don't know much more of the particulars on that at this time, but I hope it does reinforce the severity of what we're trying to do here, and I hope that helps get the message across that we need Islanders to stay home and heed the wise expert advice of Dr. Morrison.
Great, thanks. You'd mentioned that they'd come across the Confederation Bridge, so we've heard a lot about the bridge and the two-step screening process that's happening there. As with regards to the airport, we know that everyone who is coming into the airport is being followed up by public health, but what exactly does that process look like right now?
And that's another really strong question that you should follow up tomorrow with Dr. Morrison. But as I understand it, it's similar to the screening that we get at all of the other entry points to the province. They ask the questions of where you are. They ask how you're feeling. They give you the information that you need to self-isolate. They let you know that if you're feeling symptoms in the days ahead to call 811 and all of those things. And they try to get as much information as they can collect in the event that they need it to help with the contact screening should you be a positive case down the road.
Thank you. Stu Neatby, The Guardian.
Hi, good afternoon. I just kind of wanted to ask a bit of a general question. I mean, you'd noted that there's of course now the $3.7 million deficit, but we've been sort of in a cycle lately where generally the debt to GDP ratio has sort of been decreasing. I mean, I guess going forward this year, should we expect that there be sort of more added to the province's debt?
Stu, I think you can basically confirm we will be adding to the province's debt. We've borrowed $25 million and we're increasing that to $40 million, and we're in early days with this pandemic. I will say that the finance department is keeping a very close eye on this, and the money that we spend, we borrow, and we have to pay that back at some point.
Okay. And I guess just as a follow-up, I mean, there was a story, I guess, that hit the media a couple of days ago about Newfoundland because of a decreased credit rating having difficulty actually basically making its budget. Our credit rating is significantly better than Newfoundland's, but are there any concerns of that happening at any point in the near future?
Stu, at this time, there are not concerns. When I've reached out to a number of the banks and the borrowers, when they talk about, who's borrowing and how they're borrowing, I know there are provinces that are not in as good a fiscal place as we are in Prince Edward Island, and that's because of the hard work of Islanders. And I don't know if people remember, but I did talk a number of times about the bond raters, and getting a better rating from the bond raters does put us in a better place to borrow the funds that we need, and there has been no problem so far, and I don't anticipate any in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carrie Wynn McLeod, Ocean 100.
Good afternoon. My first question is for Minister Compton. Now, we've seen, at the federal level where when they would increase spending in certain programs, and the House of Commons had to be reconvened in order to approve that spending. Going from $25 million to $40 million with this emergency fund, is there at any point would the province have to reconvene the legislature in order to put this funding through, or if not now, do you see that happening in the future?
Well, Carrie Wynn, thank you for the question. It's legislated that we can operate on the Appropriations Act that we passed in the last budget, and that we can continue operating on that budget until there is a new one passed in the legislature. The excess spending, the $25 million, which is now $40 million, will be a special warrant, and we will definitely keep detailed records on where that money is going and how it's being spent. So right now, there will be no new spending as far as new programs other than outside of the COVID-19, but we will use our present Appropriations Act and our budget from the previous year going forward with those same amounts.
And just to follow up on that, Carrie Wynn, if I could, If you remember this time last year, we were getting ready to go into an election and we didn't actually go to the House until sometime in June. So the Appropriations Act allows for governments to continue to operate until such time as we reconvene the legislature. But as Minister Compton has pointed out, we are keeping not just a good track of this, but we're keeping our other parties involved in this as well, keeping them up to date with the spending, and will at some point need to come to the legislature to present a new budget, and all of that spending will need to be accounted for.
Okay.
Do we have any more?
Rachel Collier.
Oh.
Rachel Collier, Eastern Graphic. Rachel Collier, Eastern Graphic. Laurent Rigaud, La Voix acadienne.
Yes, good evening. I just have a question which is quite a follow-up of the question asked by Stu. On the document you released today online, it's written that the government was able to spend approximately 2 million of the 25 million fund prior to the close of the current fiscal year. So it means now that there is 38 million to pay, I understand, during the next year. How do you plan to do that, and what adjustments are you planning to make to the tax rate?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you're asking about the borrowing of that money, or are you asking about where we're spending that money?
No, I'm asking about the borrowing of that money. You said that there is now 38 million to pay, which has been borrowed. So my question is, do you plan to raise tax?
Right now, our concern is to make sure that islanders are looked after and that we can get through this. The $48 million will go to our long-term debt. That's how we're borrowing it. And at some point, it will have to be paid back. But right now, the concern is to take those funds and use them to make sure islanders get through the pandemic.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate the media's effort in this as well. It's been a 3-week grind for you as well, so thank you all for your work, and we will chat again in the near future. So thank you very much.